Hi, in the last video we basically set up this Plotly deep learning app in our local, right, to learn the different deep learning concept. And as I said, like, we will be doing different kinds of experiment, be with the publicly available models, or we will try to create our own models into this app itself. Okay, so let's go forward from that point. And today basically we will try to do a very simple stuff with this app. So we will do is, so we will basically use a publicly available model called ResNet to do a image classification. So probably I'll show you the one. So if you see, like, this is the page we will try to create today. So if you remember, like in our skeleton app, whatever, we have it over here. So if I just open the app, so there are two pages, right? The home page, and we also created that model showcase page over here, right? So currently this page is blank. We will try to fill up with this one. So we'll have a drop down over here. So from there we can select the images. Now these images I have kept. So if I just show you over here, in our dataset page, dataset folder, not the page, dataset folder in our inside our app. So I just created the images folder, and I just kept a couple of images like the apple, banana, beer, some images over here just for the classification purpose over here. So that particular drop down, this drop down will basically list all these images inside our images folder. Okay, so we'll try to just keep it very clean over here and very simple over here. And once we select that one, so now that our deep learning, the model we are going to use it today, that will basically classify it, okay, that particular image, and it will basically show you this kind of dash table over here. Like, let's say if I choose an apple, so what kind of apple it is, like the Granny Smith apple, like with their corresponding probabilities over here. Okay, so that's the task today. Now the model we are going to use it. So as I said, like with the TensorFlow, we are going to use that Keras, right? So for TensorFlow 2, it's already Keras will be automatically available with the TensorFlow itself. So if I just see it, like if you just go to that Keras official website over here, so Keras has a lot of applications. Like these applications are basically deep learning models that made available publicly alongside with their pre-trained weights. So you can like instantly use these models for your own purpose if that particular model, whatever it is trained for, is suitable for your use case. Okay, so now today we are going to use this ResNet 50 model here. So this is basically a deep residual learning model. So we will discuss this concept later part, but for now let's go with the fact that this is a model which we can use for the image classification purpose. Okay, so once you instantiate this model, so automatically all the details about their models and weights, everything will be downloaded automatically here. Okay, so and we can just pass an image there and it will try to classify that one. So that's thing we do. Now how to access this model from Keras? So if I just go to the documentation, so we will try to follow the TensorFlow documentation, and that should be easier enough to understand this one as well. So this is our, so currently I am using TensorFlow 2.8.0. okay, so TensorFlow has this TensorFlow.Keras, right, this particular module which basically imports all the Keras related stuff into our program here, right? Now in the Keras documentation we saw it's a Keras application, right? So similar mapping is here as well. So once you go down, so this is the application stuff, right? TensorFlow.Keras.applications. So if I just see it over here, so inside the applications you will find your ResNet 50. Okay, so this is the one we are going to use it today. So if I just go inside that ResNet 50, it comes up with three functions. One is for that instantiation of the model, like ResNet 50. Then there are a couple of other models like the pre-process input, like whenever you want to use any kind of deep learning model, right? So you need to basically pre-process that input, like the data normalization, right? So that you can do easily with that pre-process input. And the decode prediction is basically whatever the model is predicting, right? So we can decode that one and basically create a dictionary kind of object over there. So that this particular function is used for. So we are going to use 3 of these functions today. So but before that, so let's talk about another stuff. Like this whole model, this ResNet 50 model is actually trained on this dataset, ImageNet dataset. Okay, so you may heard about the WordNet dataset. So the ImageNet is having a similar kind of concept. Like let's say for each and every category, let's say animals, it have multiple subtypes, and then each and every subtypes have multiple subtypes, subtypes as well, like the domestic animal, wild animal, this kind of stuff, right? So in the Plotly playlist in my channel, so what I have done is I have created another video which will basically analyze this particular data set and see like how many images it is trained, it is having, basically the whole data set is having, what are the different kinds of images are there. So I have discussed extensively over there. Probably I will give that video link over here as well, so that you can refer it over here. Okay, so that's on the ImageNet dataset. Now let's start coding our application. So what I'll do is basically we are going to use our showcase page, right? So if I just show you the showcase page, we are going to use to display this stuff over here, right? So let's work on this showcase.py file, right? So here let's import our TensorFlow first. So import TensorFlow as TF. Okay, so now after that we are going to import that ResNet 50 as well. So import TensorFlow dot Keras, which we have seen in the documentation itself, dot applications, right? Applications dot ResNet 50, right? So from this one, because we need to instantiate our model as well, so from this one we are going to import this two stuff over here, right? This decode prediction and the preprocess input. So let's do that one. So import decode prediction and as well as our preprocess input over here. Okay, and now when we are going to use that image, probably we need to do some certain kinds of image loading and all. For that we need certain kinds of utilities as well, which we'll discuss later and we will import later whenever it's needed. Now let's first work on this part of the whole layout of the page, right? So the first thing is we have this classify image ResNet 50, this particular line over here, right? So let's do that one here. So let's say I will add it over here, html.h2. okay, I will just create an h2 element over there, and children we will just say one dot, so classify image using ResNet 50 over there, right? ResNet 50 here. So if I just save it, if I just go back, it should basically show this line over here, classify image using ResNet 50 over here. Fair enough. Let's move on. Now the second thing we need to do is we need to create a drop down over here. Okay, so what I'll do is we will not remember the syntax over there. What I'll do, we will always try to refer the documentation as we are doing it for the TensorFlow as well, right? So let's go back to the Plotly dash documentation. So when you go to dash documentation, under the open source component libraries, dash code components, so there should be something called dropdown, right? So there are multiple codes over here which you can refer it here, right? So let's copy some code over here, and which we are going to use to create our drop down as well. So basically, to create a dash drop down, what you need is basically you need these options, like what will be the drop down label. That means when the drop down will be created, in the drop down what are the things it will show up, like New York City, and what will be the value you will be working on with, right? Here both are same, that's why they have given both the places the New York City, but you can give the value differently as well. So that, let's say for our case, we just want to show the image file name in the drop down, but behind the scene we'll be working with the full image path over there, right? So probably for our case the label and value will be different over here, so which we'll try to see it. Okay, and yeah, that should be enough. And what we'll be using is the dash core component drop down over here, right? So let us try to do that one. So what I'll do is I'll give you a comma over here, and then we will go to the next line, HTML. We'll just create a div over here first. Okay, inside that div we will create the drop down over here. So when you will be creating a div, right, you need to create a list over here. Now inside that list, so let's say, because we need to give this guy over here as well, like select an image there, right? So that will be part of the div as well. Apart from the drop down, we need to give the name of the drop down as well. So first thing is we will give is a select an image there, right? So we will give a colon. The next element of the div will be our drop down, and for that we already imported that dash core component. Now couple of facts over here, like if you are using the recent version of the dash, I think dash 2, so you need to import it something like this one over here. In the previous version it was like from dash core components, you basically you'll be importing it as a dash core component, but now it will be like from dash import DCC, from dash import HTML, something like this one. Just the import part is changing, and the same thing they have mentioned in their documentation as well. That's why it is really easy to follow the documentation. So now what I'll do is we will just do similar stuff, DCC dot drop down here, right? And inside the drop down we can, let's give an ID, because we need this ID in our callback as well, right? Now from where the ID coming, if you just see the drop down properties over here, all the different properties the drop down can have, it is already listed over here, and one of them is ID over here. That's how I know, like I can give an ID over here of the component, and then the same ID we can use in our callbacks as well, right? So let's go back over here and give it a meaningful ID. Let's say image drop down. I'll just give it image drop down here. Okay, so that's ID. And the second thing we need is a options list, which will be having, if I just go back again over here and go up and see any of these examples over here, so something like this one, right? For options, this list will hold a it is basically a list of dictionary over here. If you see, like each and every dictionary have two keys, label and value over here, right? So which we need to use it basically. And if you see the drop down properties as well, similar stuff, like it is explained properly over here, like it's a list of strings or dict over here, right? So similar stuff. So let us go back to our code, and the second input will be options here, which is a list, and we are going to create a list of dictionary over here. Now for this one, first thing we need is we need to basically list all the images present in our datasets images folder over here, right? We need to basically get this paths over here, then we can list these images over here. So let us work on that part now. So what I'll do is we will create a variable called image data set home, okay, which will basically have the path of this images folder, right? So this is how we can do. So we need this OS module, which we already have. So os dot path dot join, okay, and so what we will be doing it. So basically first we will get the current path of this file, okay, this showcase.py. so this is how I will be getting it. os dot path dot directory name, correct, dir name over here of the current file, underscore file underscore, correct. So we are getting the current file name, that means this showcase.py. Then we will go one level up, so that we will be in the same hierarchy as dataset, right, same path as dataset. So that means with this we will basically we'll go one level up, then we will go to our datasets page, datasets folder, right, and then we will be going to our images folder over here. Okay, so this will be the home path of our all images over here, right? So that's fair enough. And then what we need to do is, so let's create a list of image files which we are going to use in our drop down as well over here. Okay, so we will basically loop that image file, because we need to create that label and value field, right? So label will be the image file name and the value will be the path of the image file name, correct? So for that, what I'll do is image files underscore list. I'll just create this guy over here. So how you will be creating, let's use a lambda function over here. For if in, so os dot path, so os just, so what I'll do is basically for this particular path, okay, I'll just do a list directory and I will just take the files from this file names from this directory over here. Okay, so that's why I'm just using os dot path dot list directory over here. Okay, list directory over here, and sorry, not os dot path dot list directory, os dot list directory over here. And here for which path, so this images folder, this images folder, basically we are doing a list directory over here. Okay, and we are just taking the file names over here. That means we're just checking if os dot path is file, okay, is file, and what will be the one, so this will be our this whole file name, right, the whole file path over here. That means os dot path dot join. Okay, what I will be doing it, so I'll basically having this whole file path and f over here, right? So basically we are listing the files, listing the directories over here. It will basically list the directories as well as files over here, and I'm just checking if it is a file, I will just try to list it over here. Anyway, we are not going to store any directories over here, but anyway it is good to check over here. Even it will be far better to check whether it's a image file or not, but I'm not going to that level over here. Okay, so this image file list we are going to, so basically this will get all the files as a list in our this guy over here, right? So now we were just going to iterate it, and then we are just going to basically create that label and values over here. So here in our drop down, it will be a list of drop down, correct? So that particular, sorry, it will be a list of dictionary over here, not the list of drop down. So that dictionary will be having two elements over here, like one is label, correct, and we will see what we are going to pass it over there, and another will be the value over here. label and value over here, right? We are also going to see what we are going to pass it over there. Okay, so for the label and value, so what I'll do is we are going to iterate for I in this all this image file list over here. So this list is basically having all the image file names over here. If you see it, the way we have created it over here, correct? So we are going to iterate it, and in our label we are just going to show the file name. That's why I am giving I over here, and in the value we are just going to take the full path of that image over there, right? So is dot path dot join again we are going to use, correct? So what we are going to use, so we already have our image folder path over here in the image dataset home. With that, I'm just appending the image file name. That will be giving me the whole path over here, right? So that is nothing but my I over here, because I is the image file list element over here. So that should create my drop down, and this should basically give me the list of images present in my images folder over here. Now once you run this one, you would get this kind of warnings like could not load the dynamic library for CUDA, because if you are using TensorFlow and if you want to use GPU, you need to install these CUDA libraries, which we will cover later. Okay, but currently we are just only running this program in our CPU, so that this you can ignore this particular warning over here. Now let's go back to our browser and see whether it has created the drop down or not. It has, and it is already showing up all the images I have it in my drop down over here, correct? Now if I just go back to our design again, so once I select some image over here, it should first show me the whole image path, and then probably it should display that image whatever I have selected, and then it should basically, using that particular ResNet 50 model, it should basically classify it, correct? So if I just go back to our code again, so now if you see it over here, like once you select a particular image, you should display something over here, whatever we have seen it over there. That means we need a callback over here. We have discussed the basic callback in Dash extensively. I'm not going to that level. So let us try to create a callback now. Okay, so let's go back to our code. Here, what I'll do is I will say @app dot callback. Correct. Now in the callback we already discussed, we can have output and input, so which we already included it over here in the Dash dependencies, correct? So in the output we basically give the element which output we are going to update. Okay, and let's first create the skeleton, then we will fill it up. And in the input we are going to give those elements attributes which are basically passing it to this callback over here, right? Something like if you click a button, something needs to happen. Those who are not aware about the callback, or like if you are just watching this video only for the deep learning purpose, so input will be our drop down value. So that's why this ID is important over here, right? So we are just directly copying this ID here. So this is our drop down ID, and which property we will see for the input. So if I just go back to the documentation for Dash, so whenever you select something from the drop down, right, this property is getting updated over here. It's called the value of that particular input. So that we are going to pass it here, right? So we will pass value over here. Now what output we are going to update? So for that, probably, okay, anyway, it is syntax error it is showing. We will come back over here once we completed the code. It should be fine over here. Okay, so don't worry about this one. So let me close this one now. So this is the input we are passing it, right? So what will be the output we are going to update? So for that, let's create a div over here, okay, so that we can update it there. Whatever, like image showing, basically all these things like showing the file name, image, and this table, we are just going to take it as inside the div over here. So let's create the div in our layout as well. So we will just say HTML dot div over here, right? So and we just give the ID value of the div so that we can refer it in the callback. So let's say output image upload. So we'll just say output of that image upload over here. So this ID, this div ID, we are going to give it over here, right? And what are the elements we are going to update it? So it will be that for div it will be the children, right? Because whenever we create a div, we basically create the children object, children's of the div, right? So that's the property where we basically update it. So once I add something as a part of the children, so it will be automatically shown in the browser as well, right? So the same stuff I will do it over here as well. So it will be children. So I'll just copy this guy here from here. Okay, so this will be the input and output of my callback. Now, as we have discussed before, when we have a callback, so it's basically a decorator, right? So we need to define a method. So let's say I will define a method called update output. Simple. You can give any meaningful name over here. We have discussed it. And as we have an input, so let's map it to a image name over here. Okay, so that image name, it will basically the full path of the image over here. We are going to pass it over here because in the input we are basically taking the drop down value, which is nothing but the full path, because in the value we have taken the full path of the image, right? So that will basically get passed to this image name variable over here. Okay, so this input and this image name are directly mapped over here. So now let's do the actual coding. So let's say if I have my, if we are passing the image name, we are basically selecting something from our drop down. Okay, so what we'll do is, so first let us try to see the simple stuff. We'll just return another div. Okay, so we'll say HTML dot div here. Okay, and inside that div we'll be basically creating these things over here, right? So first let us try to display this image path over here. So it will be very much easy. We will just create an HTML h5. Let's say we'll just try to create an h5 element over here. Okay, and we can directly pass this image name here. That should basically display the image name here. So let us try to run it and see it. Hopefully this should run now. Yeah, it is running. And if I just go back, and ID not found in the layout, so it is the image drop down, output image upload. Let us try to run it again. So from the index.py, I'll just try to run it now. Okay, now I think it was certain kind of cache issue. So if I just go to model showcase page and select this apple.jpg, it should show me all this full path of that particular image over here. Okay, because we are going to use this path in our program, so that's why I'm just displaying it over here. So this is fine. The next thing we need to display is the actual image itself over here, right? So let us do that one. We'll go back to our code again. We'll go back to our showcase.py, and let's take a blind break over here as well. So you can either use html.br or html.hr. It's your choice. .hr over here. Okay, it will basically give you a very nice line break over here, and then we just need to display that image. So that means again in this div we are going to basically use that HTML image tag to do that one. So similar stuff. So if I just go to dash documentation and HTML component, right, and if you just go down GHIIMG, so this is nothing but the HTML image tag it will create, where we basically display an image over there, right? So you can directly use this one. So the main thing you need to provide is the source of that image, so that we already have it, so let us do that one here. So we will do HTML dot image over here, and inside the image we are going to use the source over here, correct? Now here in the source we need to basically provide that image source over the URL of that image over here, right? Now here we need to do couple of things over here, because we are going to use that particular ResNet model to classify that one, right? Now the first thing in the any deep learning model you will be working on, the first thing is you need to provide the inputs to that deep learning model the way it wanted. Now for the ResNet model, so basically we use that image size of 224 by 224 over here. So if you just go to the documentation, probably it will be listed over there as well. If I just go to the ResNet 50, I think the default size, you can see it over here, like 224.224 over here. So that input shape, basically you need to I think this is the default shape, we need to provide it over here. So first we will create that one, then probably we will display that image over there. So for that, now we will play around with a TensorFlow a little bit. So first thing is, let us try to initialize our TensorFlow model first. Okay, so we will do couple of things together, like displaying the image as well as this prediction purpose. We'll try to code it together itself. Okay, so for that, first we will initialize the model. So we have already this TensorFlow dot Keras dot applications, right, dot ResNet 50. We have it here, we already have it over here, right? So from this one, so the model name is basically that ResNet 50 here, right? So this is the one, this is the whole stuff we are going to use it. So you already written till this point ResNet 50 over here, okay? And then we are just going to pass this one. So this method we are going to use to basically initialize the model. So once you do that, it will basically download that particular model as well. Okay, so it is complaining over here, we will fix this one. Basically now once we initialize this particular model, right, so as I said, the first step is to provide the input the way it wanted over here. Now for that, we need to basically, whatever the image size we are currently having it, right, we need to convert it to 224 by 224, correct? So for that we are going to use another library called, so if I just go back to TensorFlow documentation, now previously I think TensorFlow, no, for let's talk about this one over here itself. So under TensorFlow Keras, there is a utility called utils over here. If you see it, so it has couple of methods like load image over here, right? So it's basically loads an image to PIL format. So this guy we are going to use to, and here if you see it, you can give some target size over here as well. Okay, so this guy you are going to use to reshape that particular image over here. Okay, so what I'll do is first we will import this guy. So here in our import, say from TensorFlow dot Keras, okay, so we are going to import utils over here, So now if you are in TensorFlow 2.0, so this guy was actually under preprocessing image. So this is now deprecated over here. Okay, so you have to remember this one. So if I just go back to our code now, so here what I'll do is we'll just create a variable called image. Now there we will just use utils, correct, dot load image. So this is the method we are currently referring to, load underscore image. So let's copy that. So load image, and here it requires the image name as an input. If I just go see it over here, image path basically. There are other inputs as well, like whether you want to turn on and off grayscale, color mode, target size, we are going to use it. So let's use this guy over here now. And image name, and in the target size, you basically pass a Python tuple over here, 224, comma 224 over here. Okay, so that should be our image, and this image we can pass it to our here. Okay, so that it will display that resized image over here in our browser as well. Okay, so this is there. Now once we resize that image, right, now for the deep learning models, basically that this ResNet model, we need to basically pass this image as an array over here. So for this, let's create a variable called image underscore array, and we are going to use the same utils package. That's the beauty of this one, because if you see the utils package, so there is two methods called array to image and image to array. Okay, so this image to array basically converts a image instance to a numpy array over here, so that we can pass it to that model over here, right? So that method we are going to use it now, image to array, and here we need to pass that image over here, whatever we have created over here, correct? So that is also done. Now another thing is, let's go back to a very interesting stuff. Probably I'll show you here. Now if you remember, like in my channel also, I have given the link for another playlist which I am covering in my other channel called Splunk and Machine Learning. So there I basically talked about like different concept of the deep learning, right? And one of the important concept is tensors, right? How to work with the different tensors over here, what is tensor and what are the different kinds of tensors. And in that video, probably I will give that video link over here as well, we talked about the 4D tensor, right? Because when you talk about an image, so that image will have 3 layers for red, green and blue, because for each and every pixel, so we have that red, green and blue values over there, right? So that means when we talk about an image over there, so we are not only talking about that particular each and every pixel will be having 3 values, one for red, one for green and one for blue over here, right? So that's a 3D tensor. Now most of the times in a deep learning model, we pass multiple images over there, right? Something like this one over here, right? So that means this list of images basically creates another dimension over there, which we talked about in that video, right? So that means we are basically talking about a 4D tensor over here, right? So this image to array basically creates that 3D tensor over here. If you see the documentation over here as well, okay, it basically creates that 3D array over here. Now to make it as list of images, we need to create another dimension over there, right? So but we are passing a single image over here, single images over here. That means my this guy, like this guy is basically array of a single image. So this guy is basically array of a single image, but still we need to create that extra array over there, right? So we can easily use that numpy expand dimensions over there. So for that, I need to import numpy over here, numpy as in p, the famous import. And then what I'll do is, so let's say image batch. So this is called batching of the image, right? Image batch. So we will be using numpy dot expand dims, okay, and we are going to pass this array over here, and then based on first axis, 0th axis, we are going to expand it over here. Okay, so that will basically create that batch of images over here for me, right? That multiple images as an array over there, it will create that one. So now we can directly use the pre-process, because as I explained before, so to use a deep learning model, it is always good practice to do the data normalization. Probably I will cover this data normalization concepts in detail in my videos, but to use a particular model, it is really necessary you pass this values of, so let's say here we are trying to create, basically we are trying to predict an image over here, right? And for each and every pixel we have like the RGB value of, which is basically ranging from 0 to 255 over there, right? So it will be good if the model is working on a very lower end, let's say 0 to 1 or 1 to 1. So for that we need that pre-processing input over here, and Keras automatically provides that. So probably like when I will be covering the theory part, we will talk about this one in a detailed way, but for now, so let's use this pre-process input to pre-process that input, basically do the normalization over here. So what I'll do is I will say image underscore pre-processed here, correct? So we already included this one, so let's use this guy here, pre-process input, and we'll be passing our batch of images over here, which we have created over here, correct? So once the pre-processing is done, now we are ready to do the prediction. Image underscore prediction. So let's do that one using our model, correct? So model.predict. Predict over here, and we are going to pass the pre-processed image over here, correct? So this is how the prediction will be happening. And once it is doing the prediction, so let us go back to the documentation again. It's good to go back to the documentation again and again. So if I just go to our Keras applications and our ResNet 50, and there we have initialized with this method. We have used this method to pre-process the input. Now we are going to use this method to decode the prediction over here, correct? And here you can give like how many top prediction you want to do, like top 5, top 2, top 3, something like this one over here. We are going to use top 3 because here anyway we are going to see like top 3 predictions over here, correct? So let's do that. So let's say decode underscore image prediction. Okay, I'll just create the variable in such a way that we can at least by naming itself we can understand what it is doing. So the decode prediction, we are going to use it now. So in the decode prediction we are going to pass whatever the prediction done by this model, and then we are going to pass the top, how many top values. So I need top 3 values, okay? And this is it. So now we can use this guy to populate that dash table, correct? So let us do that, because in the return itself we are just creating the whole div, right? We already created that image path, we already created that image source. Now let us try to add that table over here now, right? So for that, again, we don't know anything how to create a table, but we know how to create a documentation, how to basically see the documentation. So we are going to use, so if I just do it over here, so dash has this data table concept, dash data tables over here, okay? So probably when I will be specifically talking about dash tables, I will cover it in very detail, but for now just try to remember, like in the dash underscore table dot data table, if you pass a dictionary, so like it will basically show it as a table over here, okay? Some similar concept as pandas as well over there. So for that we first need to know how my decoded image prediction is getting, how we are getting the data, right? Let's print that, print decode image prediction there, okay? Before we code that we will try to see. We'll try to run this one and we'll try to see how this guy is getting populated. Then probably we will try to convert it according to that dash table over there. I'll go to index.py and I will try to run it. Hopefully there is no error now. Okay, and let us go back to our home page. Let us try to deploy it. Home page, model showcase. Let's select the Apple. Now if you see it, when you are first time running it, it took some time to populate this one because of this line over here in our showcase.py. This line, it is trying to download that model over here. Okay, and it is able to, so if I just go back, it is able to display the image and the image path over here as well, and it should print the prediction over here as well if you see it. Correct. Let's copy this guy. So copy in a notepad. Okay, so it is basically with 92% confidence level, it basically classified this as a Granny Smith FL over here. Okay, and which is basically correct as well. With basically 1% confidence level, it's classified as a strawberry. Similarly for pomegranate as well. Okay, so but it is a list of Python tuple over here if you see it, but for the displaying in our dash table we need a list of dictionary over here, right? So let us try to convert it. So what I'll do is I will just create an empty dictionary first. Predicted dict. Okay, and then just I will loop through that particular decoded image prediction. Okay, di in decoded image prediction, and I'll just fill up this particular dictionary over here. And what we will fill up, we will basically take this name and this confidence level. That's it. We are just going to ignore the first value of this particular tuple over here. Okay, so let us do that. So I'll say predicted dict. So the key will be in the di, right? This di second element, that means 1, because it's always 0 based index over here, right? So di1, and the value will be di2 over here, right? The third element over here of that particular tuple. So that should be enough. Now what I can do is, if I just go back to the documentation of the dash, so you can just pass that dictionary over here in the dash underscore table dot data table over here. Okay, so for that we need to import that dash underscore table as well. So let's do that. So from dash import dash underscore table over here. Okay, and let's copy this code. See, if you see, like if you do not know anything about it, by using this example itself you can create your app. So here in the next element of this div, I'll do dash table. Probably I'll wrap it into HTML div as well. That also I can do HTML.div. Okay, and I'll just wrap it inside a div over here. So, and inside the dash data table, I'll just pass my predicted dict over here. Okay, so that should basically display it as a table over here as well. So if I just go back and select an apple, it is saying some error, JSON serializable, which is not JSON serializable. Okay, I think I got it, because if you see it, the actual decoded error, it is a list inside another list, then we have a tuple over here. Okay, so basically in the code, in the decoded image prediction, the first value, basically we have to take that list over here. Like in the decoded image prediction, the first list element you have to take, like this guy you have to take over here. That's why I have just given that 0 over here. Ideally that should fix the issue. So if I just select the apple.jpg, invalid argument data passed into the data table. Okay, and if I just go back to the documentation, so it should be a list of dictionary over here, right? So if I just see couple of examples over here, yes, it's a list of dictionary over here, because it has a it needs to be multiple rows over here, right? So that means I need to pass it as a list over here as well. Okay, so let's try to see it. If I select Apple, okay, now it is fine over here. Okay, so this is how we are going to predict using that ResNet 50 model and display the predictions over here. And if I just try some other images as well, like the banana, it is with the almost 100% confidence level, it is basically classifying it as a banana. Or let's say Charlie Chaplin. I have an image for Charlie Chaplin as well, and this is interesting, but it is basically classifying it as a bulletproof vest, military uniform. Basically it is looking into this uniform level. So this is also another important aspect of deep learning models, like when the model is getting trained, right? So what part of the images it is basically using to train the model, that is also important factor when it will be performing on the test data set. Okay, so even this particular concept I will be covering it in later videos as well, like while we are training it, right, or while we are predicting it, which part of the images it is basically seeing it when it is doing the prediction or training, we need to analyze that one as well. So probably we will touch base on that concept later in the videos. So let's try another one. Let's try cat. Probably it should identify, yeah, Egyptian cat. It is able to identify with 41% confidence level over here. Okay, so this is how basically we have just taken a very simple example of classifying an image using the ResNet model in our Plotly Dash program, right? So this is just a stepping stone. We'll try to learn some more fun stuff as well going forward. Okay, so hopefully this video was helpful. See you in the next video.